You, curious soul of the night, every city hides a story it whispers after dark. What's yours? The following horror stories circle those whispers we call urban legends. Tales everyone denies and somehow remembers. An intimate narration of things seen at the edge of light, heard at the edge of truth. Stay with me and keep the lights on. I used to volunteer at Staten Island University Hospital, back when the old Willowbrook building still rotted beyond the trees. Everyone on the island knew the Cropsey stories, our version of the boogeyman. I never really believed any of them. That changed one winter night. I'd just finished a late shift, close to 11, in halls so quiet it felt like the building was holding its breath. I clocked out, grabbed my backpack, and headed for the bus stop, past the bright parking lot and toward the shortcut. A narrow service path cut through the woods beside the chain-link fence around Willowbrook. It wasn't official, but everyone used it, and it shaved 15 minutes off the walk. That night, as soon as I stepped onto the path, the air felt wrong. No crickets, no wind, just my footsteps on gravel and the hospital's hum fading behind me. Then I heard it. One sharp snap, then another, like slow footsteps somewhere behind me. I turned, expecting a deer or another night shift worker. The trail was empty. Beyond the fence, Willowbrook hunched against the sky, its windows black. I walked faster, and the unseen footsteps matched my pace. A whisper slid out of the dark, so soft I could almost pretend I imagined it. "Come back inside," I sped up. "You're not supposed to be out here." The voice was clearer now, male and calm, like someone repeating a rule he'd been given. I spun around. He stepped out from between the trees, barefoot, in a stained hospital gown. He didn't blink. He only stared, puzzled, like he couldn't understand why I was outside and he wasn't. "I've been looking for someone," he said, voice flat. "Someone to help me go back." I didn't ask what he meant. I ran, branches scraping my arms as I tore down the path. I refused to look back, afraid I'd see him inches behind me. My lungs burned and my legs shook, but I didn't slow until I reached the yellow light of the side parking lot. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone calling security. Officers swept the path, the fence, the edge of the Willowbrook ruins, but they found nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no scrap of cloth on the fence. One officer pulled me aside, his expression tight. "You're not the first person to see someone out there," he said quietly. "That place shut down in '87, but some of the patients never really left." He believed me, which somehow made it worse. I never took that shortcut again. Even now, years later, I avoid dark, empty hospital wings and listen, not for footsteps or doors, but for that same voice in the dark. "Come back inside." I don't think what I saw that night was a ghost or a harmless story. It felt like something left behind, still wandering an abandoned ward, waiting for the first fool who walks too close to the trees. Back when I drove nights for a courier service, I ran the same route between Cheyenne and Rollins, a stretch of winter highway that felt like the edge of the world. Most nights, I could drive an hour without seeing another car and pretend that kind of emptiness was peaceful. One late January night, close to 11, that comfort disappeared. A few miles outside Elk Mountain, the wind came down off the slopes hard enough to shake my mirrors. Snow blew sideways so thick, my high beams bounced back at me and turned the highway into a shaky tunnel of light. Through that glare, I finally saw a figure on the shoulder. A woman stood in the storm, facing my lane with her arms hanging at her sides, like she had been planted there. Her long white coat looked far too thin for that kind of cold. Something for fall, not a Wyoming blizzard. Then she raised both arms and started waving. Huge, frantic motions that carved through the snow. It didn't look like a hitchhiker signal. It looked like someone begging not to be left there. Every sensible thought said, "Keep going, lock the doors, don't stop." Instead, my foot eased off the gas. I pulled onto the shoulder and cracked the window an inch, and the cold punched into the cab hard enough to sting my eyes. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I shouted into the wind, my voice almost torn away by it. She stepped into the headlights. Pale face, dark hair, eyes that looked drained instead of wild. Her breath fogged the air in thin, shaking bursts as she spoke. "My name is Sarah," she said. "I need to get home. Please." Something in the way she said home slid under my skin and settled there. I told her to get in the back and said I'd take her as far as Elk Mountain. She opened the rear door slowly and climbed in without a word. I waited for a blast of snow or boots on ice, but nothing. No cold air, no slush, no wet mark on the seat. For several minutes, she didn't speak, and I kept stealing quick looks at her in the rearview mirror. Her coat stayed spotless. Her hair never moved in the airflow from the vents. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "Thank you. No one ever stops. Why were you out there? Do you live nearby?" I asked. But she only turned toward the side window and stared into the dark, as if she were watching something pace us in the snow. 20 silent minutes later, the weak lights of Elk Mountain appeared. She whispered, "Stop here." And when I pulled onto the shoulder and glanced back, the seat behind me was empty. The door hadn't opened, the locks hadn't clicked, and no cold air had brushed my neck. Outside, the snow around the truck lay smooth and untouched, without a single footprint or scuff where someone might have stepped down. I should have driven away, but instead, I walked to the porch and knocked. An older man answered in a flannel shirt. I told him I had picked up a woman in a thin white coat who said her name was Sarah and that I thought she lived there. The color drained from his skin. "That's my daughter," he said quietly. "She died on that highway 30 years ago this winter, caught in a storm walking home from school. Some nights people say they still see her." He didn't invite me in. He just closed the door like someone shutting a story they already know too well. I went back to my truck and drove on. The rest of the way, I checked the rearview mirror again and again, even though I knew it would stay empty. Now, passing Elk Mountain, I keep the doors locked, afraid she'll already be sitting behind me in the dark. Before I tell you this, I know how it sounds. The elevator game is supposed to be an internet ritual, a made-up challenge kids post online to scare each other. I thought it was just that, until the night my cousin talked me into trying it. I was staying at his apartment in Queens. in an old gray high-rise where the halls always hummed and the elevator groaned with every trip. The car rattled so hard it felt barely held together. One night, after a late run to the bodega, he nudged me and said, "Let's do it. The elevator game." I laughed, but he wouldn't drop it. "Come on," he whispered. "Just once." The rules are simple. Get into an empty elevator. Press a pattern of floors. Don't speak to anyone who enters. And if you do it exactly right, you're supposed to end up on a floor that doesn't exist. Not on the panel. Not anywhere normal. We stepped in, started the sequence, trying to act like it was a joke. At the 5th floor, the elevator jerked, stopped, and the doors slid open with a long, tired groan. A woman stepped in. She didn't look at us. She walked straight to the corner, turned her back, and lowered her head like she was listening to something inside the walls. Her hair hung in stringy curtains. I told myself she was just a neighbor coming home, until I saw her feet. They weren't facing the same direction as her body. They pointed inward, toes almost touching, twisted at a wrong angle, like she'd been spun without the rest of her moving. My cousin's hand clamped on my arm. "Don't talk," he whispered, "no matter what." The elevator creaked back into motion, cables whining. At the 7th floor, the lights flickered so hard the car flashed with shadow, then steadied. I made the mistake of looking at her. She was turned toward us now. Her head tilted so far to the side, her chin nearly rested on her shoulder. Her eyes were wide and glassy, reflecting a shine that didn't match the weak ceiling lights. Her mouth began to open, slowly, like it hurt, but nothing formed into words. Just a long exhale that smelled like mildew, standing water, and something old left to rot. When the doors finally slid open on the 9th floor, we ran. We didn't look back. We didn't speak. We didn't breathe again until the apartment door was shut and the deadbolt locked. The next morning, my cousin told me he woke before sunrise to the feeling of someone on the other side of the door. No knocking, no footsteps, just wait. He's sure the woman from the elevator was standing there, silent, still, waiting. He moved out a month later and still refuses to ride elevators alone. And me? Anytime I step into an elevator now, I check the corners first. Even when it's empty, I make sure, just to be certain no one is standing there with their head bowed, waiting to turn around. Still here? Thanks for listening. Tap the link and watch 3 more nightmares.